And hope you are all doing well. So I in this tutorial I'm going to explain you how to build your first Android application, and I will try to explain you each and every steps, each and every concepts that you need to understand, everything in this one single video. So let's start the video. So the first thing you go is, like you see, I'm using IntelliJ IDE, which is provided by JetBrains for building this Android application. This IntelliJ IDE has multiple plugins, so I strongly recommend you guys to install this and use it, because you can build multiple applications. Like you can build Flutter, you can build a Kotlin multi-platform application, Compose multi-platform application. You can also use Python applications. So for the moment we are selecting Android application. The template is phone and tablet. Just select the empty activity. Next. Okay, now first thing that you have to do is you have to name the application, that is demo app. Okay, just be careful about the package name, because I strongly suggest you guys to select the package name so that you will not change it later, because if you would like to change it later, you have to do some extra work. So just define your package name so that you will not change it later on. Just be careful about the saved location where you are saving your application. You are using the Kotlin as a, and the Minima SDK as 21, right? Create your application. Voila guys, so we have created our application, and then what we have to do right now is uh, okay, so the application is created. Like the Android Studio, the IntelliJ IDE has created our application. So let's try to run this application. Okay, we have an error. Why there is an error? Because it says that you need a version 33. So just go to the your application build, and you have to specify the target version as a 33. Just sync it, and now run the application. Yes, okay, now we have run our application, because as you know that the version I was targeting was 33, as you can see here. Okay, so let's not waste our time guys, so let's go more further, right? So it's a very simple application, right? But I want to explain you each and every simple concepts, the basic concepts. So the first thing that you have to understand is, just go to this icon. It's a SDK manager, and make sure that you guys have installed all your latest SDK platforms, SDK tools. You see all the tick mark here: the Android emulator, Android SDK platform tools, Google Play services, Intel x86 emulator accelerator if you want to make your emulator faster, and all you can check out the SDK update sites. Okay, so for the moment I have installed Android API 33, Android API 32, and Android 12. Okay, so now let's understand this Android release, how it is happening, and what is the most important concept. There is three more important concepts in this software development kit, um, in Android release. Okay, every Android release happens. You have to understand these three important concepts for every Android release that is happening. Okay, that is made by Google. So in every release, you see that the platform version is Android. For example, you see here the platform version is Android 12, right? This Android 12, the API level is 31, and the version code is S, you can see here. So those three important concepts are there for Android, every Android API release. Just like you see here, in every year the Android releases its new version, and this new version has three important concepts. One is Android, your platform version, your version code, and your API level. Okay, so for the moment I can see that our latest API level, the release is 33, and that's it guys. So you can just pretty much install, uninstall, based on what you in which API version that you want to, API level you want to create your application on. Okay, so this is the one important concept. Now let's go further on. And there is a question how you should choose the API level for your app. How you should choose? You should choose the API level. Actually, API level is the framework API version of the Android SDK. Okay, so it's like a framework API version. When you create an Android project, you need to define these three API levels so that you can basically understand it from build.gradle file of app, where you can find it here. Okay, build.gradle.api, build.gradle file in your app subfolder. As you can see here inside, in your, if you see, you open the app subfolder, you have this file called build.gradle file, right? So this file actually has all this information about your in which configuration, the default configuration in which the app is targeted, the minimum SDK version for your app, in which the minimum SDK API required for the user to install your application. The target SDK version means the version that you are targeting or the version you are testing it. You see, I'm testing it in the version API level 33, right? And the version code is pretty much like it's the version in which you are the code in which your application is running. It's like this one. For each release, the version code keeps on changing, right? You can change it, but it is pretty much restricted to your app. So but the important things are the minimum SDK version, the target SDK version, and the compile SDK version. The compile SDK version is pretty much the version that you are using to compile your application. So the compilation of your application is happening in the API level 33. Okay, so please note that your minimum SDK version should be less than the target, always less than the target SDK version. It should, the minimum SDK version should never be greater than the target SDK, and your target SDK version should always be less than or equals to compile SDK version. So the most important thing is the compile SDK version in which you are compiling your application. So this is the most important concept that you have to understand. So now when should you release that? There is a question. Okay, when should you increase? Because I just don't want to make it static, right? I don't want to make it some kind of a just okay, create your application and just leave it like this. Okay, you cannot do like that, right? You have to update this minimum SDK and target state version. So when should you increase this version? Okay, this is the question, the big question. You should increase this version whenever there is a new release in made by Google. Like when there is a new release by Google, like for example, it's always a best practice. You should increase your target SDK version and compile SDK version and test your application with the latest release version, right? For example, the latest one is 33. Maybe the next time it will be 34, 35. The API level 34 will be released later on next year, like coming years, or maybe it's whenever there is a new release in the of Android, you just can pretty much you install the SDK, install the SDK, and then pretty much test your application. Okay, just updating your target SDK version, so you can test it, and then you can also compile using the latest release version. Okay, so this is the another important concept. So now I would like to give you the overview, the like a brief overview of your Android. Maybe it can be Android Studio, or it can be also IntelliJ IDEA. It's like the same, nothing much changes between Android Studio and my this IntelliJ IDE. Okay, because they are all both developed by JetBrains, right? So okay, what is the basic of uh, my integrated development in Brain? The basic thing is this one, the project. This button, the project. It just you can switch between projects and Android. Okay, Android will just give you the compact version of all your files and folders of your project. but the project will give you the entire complete window, like a complete version of your application project files and folders. It is subdivided into different categories. Like this is the main subfolder that you have to focus on, and but you have to focus also on some other files and folders here, like local properties, build.gradle file. All these are equally important, but just focus for the moment in the application folder. Okay, so this is about your files and folders of your application. What about the the UI? Just let's create, just check out a layout. So this is a pretty simple layout. Okay, this is the same layout that is being displaying in the emulator, right? So uh, the first thing that you have to understand about the layout is this palette window. You see the palette window shows all the UI components that you can drag and drop. Here, you see I can pretty much dragging and dropping the UI components, and this is the most common used. You can select between text, button, widget, layouts, containers, helpers, googles, and legacy UI components. There is another interesting tab, which is component tree, which pretty much gives you the tree of all the components that is being used in the your layout. And the design editor is pretty much is this one. This is the design editor. You can select between design, split between the design and the code. Okay, you can split between design code, or you can just see the code, right? Let's focus on the design first the moment, and you can also check out the attributes for this design. There are multiple attributes. You can also just write your attributes like text. You see, you can pretty much write and search the attributes, and this is how you can work it. And I will be in my upcoming lectures, I will be explaining more on this. I'll be giving you examples, and I will be explaining how to use it more, these concepts. Okay, so there is another window. It's called version control, which pretty much gives you the entire overview of your log files and current file and remote branches, which is connected with your repository. Okay, so for the moment I have not connected my repository to this local code. Okay, for the moment I have just my code is local. Okay, and we have our logcat. Okay, which pretty much gives us all the information about our log and everything. You can just filter them between the information or errors. You have a build window, which gives more information about how what if if the build was successful or there was some errors. You can analyze your builds. You have some build variants window. You see, for the moment it's just I have two versions variants, that is build and debug. You can have multiple bit variants. You have Android emulator. This is Android emulator that shows the emulated Android device. For the moment I have just created this one, and yeah, that's it, guys. And okay, so now actually I have already created the Android emulator, but I will now teach you how to create like another emulated device. For the moment I have already created one, so let's create a new device. You can go to this device manager, and you can click create device, and you can just select your recommended your Android virtual device. So I will strongly suggest you to only create the emulated device which has this icon, that is a Play Store icon, which has all the Play services installed. And okay, select this, go to the next one. You can select the the required API level. Just select the 32. You can select between portrait and landscape. You can just have advanced you can do some advanced settings, like you can select the internal storage. You want to do the boot option like cold or quick boot, and yeah, that's it. It's pretty simple, right? You can finish and create your emulator, which is this one that is studied I recently created, right? Okay guys, so it's pretty simple to create the emulator and you can test the application. Okay, so we run our application and it was pretty running pretty well. So now let's jump to the basics of our Android application. So what is the basic? There are four main basic parts. The first thing is the activity. Okay, this is like the your entry point, which displays the UI of your app and handles the user's input. So this is our the main activity. You see the main activity, you can see the view here, but this is the entry point of our application. How can you see that this is an entry point? Because it is also described here in the manifest that this is the entry point. You see the launcher here. Okay, so the second important concept is like the resources, and it is pretty much defined. It's all the resources files are inside your resources folder, and your resources folder has drawables, your layouts, the main layout. You have the mip maps for your like your launcher icons, with different dimensions like SDPI, MDPI, high definition pixel, medium, or extra resolution, the values like color string themes, values for the night, for the theme, night theme and daylight day theme, the XML files, everything, all the resources are inside the resource folder. And finally, you not only have that, but you also have the third important concepts in Android is like you have this build.gradle file. Actually it's a script file that helps you to build your application, okay, so that it can be installed in a device. So it's like a script. So this is pretty much like all the entire thing that is written inside here is a script, okay, which helps you to build your application. So Gradle build.gradle file is a script to build your application. And finally, the fourth important concept in your Android application is the test file, for doing your unit test. For example, you have this simple example unit test that is automatically generated when you create an application, right? Okay, so uh, okay, so this is it about our basic concept, and uh, we can dive more deeper inside our application code, and we can see that our main application folder has a source folder which contains all the source code, the test code, the resources, and everything is here. Okay, every code of your application is inside this source folder. Okay, and you have libs here. It may contain local libraries and dependency of a file. For the moment it's empty. And you can have a Android test folder, which consists of all the instrumented test, that is also UI test. You have a source main, like a main folder, which contains of all the Kotlin app files, like activity, like I can contain here activity, the fragments, adapters, view models, repository, API services, resources. Okay, everything is there. And then you have our resources file in this resources folder, and then you have a test file inside this test folder. And yeah, you have a manifest file. Okay, here this is the it declares all your app components, the app permissions. Okay, you can declare important information about your applications, like your application name, the label, the launcher icons, all the important app informations are stored here. Your entry point, the activity, which activity is your entry point, right? And yes, we have the another important file is like build.gradle file, which helps you to build and file your test your app, build your app, test your app, and deploy your app. uh, And that's it, guys. You can also have use you can use your terminal command w to build your application. You see, you can use it by dot slash gradle w build. It's pretty much um, you can use pretty much use your terminal to build your application by using this command, right? And right now it's just performing the build. And Android framework, comes with a very large set of built-in classes for views, like text views, image views. You can you see the build is successful, like text views. Okay, for example, if I go to my layout, you see that this text file view, if you just open it, you will see that this is all this is provided by our Android library, right? And this Android library, actually, you see that the Android framework comes with a very large set of built-in classes like views, text views. Text view is extending views, which is like, it's pretty lengthy class. You see how long this is. It's like almost 14,294 lines of code. It's pretty huge. And you have yeah, the Android framework is pretty huge. Like, it gives you a lot of built-in uh, views and like classes for everything that you need, for build your very strong application, very strong and robust application. So you can also have let me go more further. We have drawables that contains all the files related to images, vector assets, and you have layouts, like you see the main activity layout. This is the main activity layout. And you have a mip map, as I showed you, for your launcher icons. You have the values and mm, and further interesting concepts. So also, there is another interesting thing in your application, is like your resource ID. As you can see, your activity main is like the interesting thing is, like, Android auto generates a class file called R class file. If you see this R class file, I cannot access it, uh, but it is auto generated. This R class file is auto generated. And okay, we cannot access it, but it's auto generated by our when you build your application. And it consists of many resource identifier, right? So you can use it to access your resources. Like, for example, I'm using this resource identifier, this one, to pretty much access my this uh, my resource, like a resource file, which is inside this resource folder. Okay, so this is the concept that you have to understand. So all your images, every resources, like strings, your styles, your color, your drawables, everything is accessed by these resource identifiers or resource IDs. And this is one of the example here. Okay, and and the interesting thing that you have to understand is, every time you create a resources, you should always follow the naming conventions. When you create the naming conventions, is you should always create it in a lowercase. You see, it's a lowercase, okay, with underscores, without spaces, and it must be unique when you create a resources, right? Every resources you see here is following the naming convention, like lowercase, underscores, without spaces, and must be unique. So every resources file should be unique. You should not duplicate it, otherwise you will have a build error, right? Okay, so this is what about the concept, and we can move further on. What we can do is like we can move further on with our application, right? So what we can do is we can understand our activity. So activity has you see that your activity extends this app compact activity, which is pretty much provided by also Android X library. It's a base class for activity that wish to use some of the newer platform features on older Android devices. Some of these backported features include support action bar, okay, app delegate, set default night mode. This is like pretty much a newer version of activity, okay. So which pretty much provides us our the structure in which we can create a activity, right? So actually it inherits the behavior. Okay, let me just so the main activity actually inherits the behavior from the Android framework activity. So so we can override the life cycle methods to our main activity, okay. And so actually every activity has its life cycle. So okay, let me override some of the to just give you some example. You can have on start, you have on resume, you have on pause. It is not necessary to just override all this method, but it is on unless you have some particular case to, okay, like unless you have some certain situation, right? You want to uh, for the moment this is for a simple application only on create method, you can just only override the on create method. For some particular cases then you can override this. So but all these methods are all depending on the life cycle on which your activity is in, and on which life cycle you want to perform some certain modification in your activity, right? So this is like stage your activity is created. This is when your life's your this is the stage when your activity is visible, okay. This is the stage where stage of your application life cycle where your where user can do some inputs, put some inputs. So this is the stage on pause is the stage in which your uh, activity is paused, but it can go to on resume. So it can resume again, or you can restart again the application, so it can on pause, can go to on resume or on start, and on stop is pretty much like your activity is not visible at all. Okay, and destroy is like stays when your activity is terminated. So your activity is no more displayed here, like if I close this, it is no more displayed. If I um, just in this way, if I just put this click this button, you see it's in the stage like uh, on pause, like you can go also to on resume, right? So okay, I would like to create a very simple demo of the application, where I will use also I would like to make my app very interactive and take some user input and respond to it. So how can we do that is like so the best practice is, okay, let me go to my build.gradle file and let me introduce a concept of view binding, right? Let me sync it. So so I am just implementing view binding. uh, so actually view binding is done or implemented to bind the views to your code. It is faster than data binding. Okay, so we will be talking in much in depth and detail in data binding and the difference between data binding, view binding and everything, but I'm just trying to give you a overview of what I'm trying to do is like giving you a simple app in which the application takes the inputs, and act according to the inputs, just um, do some just respond to that input. Okay, so for the moment, like let me go to the my activity. So this is a hello world. I already told you, like let me go to the design, let me go to the palette button. Okay, okay, let me drag and drop the I dragged and drop and this UI button. Close the palette, go to the attributes, my input button. Okay, your item is input button. Okay, and I just assign the constraints. Okay, I will be also explaining. Okay. Okay, so click the button. Okay, and okay. Okay, so I think this is pretty much okay uh, for the layout. And what we can do is now we can go to our activity. We can implement the view binding. Okay, I can pretty much implement the binding using the layout inflator. Then I can use the truth, and now I can pretty much also implement the click. Okay, how can we implement the click? You can use click and click. Okay, a private function call handle click, which will use with binding. Actually I have here, if you see the code, I have a input button, right, which has I already told you, you can identify or you can implement, you can access the view using the resource identifier. Like this is the identifier ID, right? So how can I access the resource identifier is like input button. This is the resource identifier, set on click listener. So if you, whenever you click it, you text view, I will update the text view to say oh, wow, you clicked the button. Okay, and then you also toast a message saying saying that you clicked me. Okay, toast dot length long. Okay, you saw the toast. Okay, so this is pretty simple application where you click the button and update the view, text view, and also you saw the toast. Okay, so let's run the application. Okay, pretty much, seems like it's pretty, my view is okay, pretty, sorry guys, seems like my view was pretty out of the way, right? Yeah, because I had this, I don't need any horizontal vertical constant. Okay, so now it must be Okay, so I apply the, but still I have this uh, I have to remove this horizontal constraint and I have to apply these changes. Okay, now it looks perfect, guys. And yeah, I click this button. You see, wow, you click the button and you have a toast here. It's pretty much, you see, it's pretty simple and fine. And this is a simple demonstration of how your application is being created, but in my upcoming tutorials I'll be going and teaching you advanced concepts. Okay, so please follow my tutorials. So now let's understand in detail about what is a Gradle file. Okay, so uh, let's understand what is Gradle. So Gradle actually it's a script, I already told you, but apart from the script it is also uh, build automation system. So it helps you to a script that helps you to build your Android app. Okay, okay. So it manages your build cycle through a sequence of tasks like compiling your Kotlin source code, running test, installing application to your emulator. So it does multiple things, guys. So it manages the dependency between your project and third-party libraries. It also determines the proper order of the task to run in a sequence. So Gradle uses this directed acyclic graph to determine which task and what order to run them. Okay, so if you see, the first thing that you have in your Gradle file is a plugins, right? And this is the plugins which you used for the to in your Gradle file, right? uh, so what is actually plugins? And plugins provide libraries and infrastructure needed to your file. So what are plugins actually? So plugins are, it provides libraries and infrastructure needed to in your app. Okay, it provide also additional functionality and supplementary dependency and task, so that the developer do not have to declare all the dependencies. So it also provides additional functionalities also and supplementary dependencies. Uh, so the developer do not have to declare all the dependencies, right? So it is that's why it is a plugin. And the second thing is, like, you have here the second important thing, which is like your Android properties. You define here Android properties, right? Inside this Android this block, Android block, you define all the properties for your Android, right? And here we have like a configuration block, which you provide all your configuration, your min SDK, target SDK, and actually you outside you have a compile SDK version, but you know your default configuration, like your min and target SDK version, your version code, all these are defined in your configuration block, right? And also you have your build types. For the moment we have just default release and debug mode, you see. And for the moment I have not defined anything, because it's by default. Okay, there is a by default there, so I'm not providing any extra parameters here. That's why you can either write it or remove it. So also you have your compile options, your Kotlin options, your build features, yeah, and many more. So you can also handle your extra dependencies here. The third block is like you can handle extra dependencies here, and here you can create add any dependencies that you need, and based on your choice of your application development, right? Like depending on your application, you can add more extra dependencies here, right? uh, and that's it, guys, for this Gradle file in app level. There is also another Gradle file in your project level, which is build.gradle. In this project level Gradle file, which also has like plugins and also your one task here. Okay, so I think this is it about our description about the build.gradle file. And also there is, I would like to also give you some bonus of you can use, I already told you, you can use your terminal to build your application, right? Like you can use your terminal command gradle w build, like it helps you to build your application. Right now it's build failed. Why it's failed? Obviously it's because of the obsession. Okay, obviously because I have added some comments here, so it's on the line. Okay, what it says is like class file measure version 63, illegal argument exception answer class file measure version 63. So obviously there are okay, because I have added some comments, so I would like to remove these comments, guys. um, okay. There was some. Okay, so now I would like to sync it. Try to build it again. I hope now it's gonna build. Yeah, it's now built. There were some simple errors in with writing the so be careful about whenever you write some extra comments or code in your build.gradle file. Okay, so now I would also like to give you another important Gradle command, which is gradle w task, so which will give you all your necessary build commands and that you can use. Okay, so So you have a list of tasks that you can directly run in your command line. It's pretty simple, right? You can I just use one command that was built, but you can that is a task. So I can use multiple tasks, right? For example, I can use clean also. It will just pretty much clean. uh, okay, sorry, there was a mistake. Clean. Okay, you see it will pretty much clean my application. I can use Gradle w uh, check. It will do also all the checks, as you can see here. Run all checks. You can, you can do lint, run lint on default variants. You can device check, you can do all this task. You can install debug, uninstall all. You can write projects. You can dependencies, dependencies. So check out all the dependencies. No confusion. So the service available by adding a scan option. Okay, and okay guys, so it's pretty interesting. Okay, so now let's jump to the another concept, which is called unit testing. And actually I have not done any. I'll just give you some overview. Okay, actually you see the unit test lies in this subfolder. We will be covering the entire concept of unit testing later on in coming videos, but here I will just give you the overview. The every test um, that you write will be in this subfolder, that is a test. Okay, and this is one simple example created by Android Studio itself, and you can pretty much run your test, right? This example test, and whenever you run the test, you will run the test using we will use actually the JUnit library. It's a JUnit is a framework actually to do your unit test. And you can also see in your build Gradle that you are using your implementing JUnit version 4.13.2. Okay, and for this is actually for the unit test, but this is also for Android test. That is also, as I told you, we are using for Android test means like it's also integration test. We're using Espresso library here, as you can see here. Okay, and you can also use the command here for running test in the terminal. Just Gradle test. You see it runs the test and it's successful. Okay, okay, so this is a simple description about our test. Okay, whenever you run the test, you can see that the test was successful with this green check mark. And so, okay, now let's jump with the another important concept, which is accessibility. So there are some simple design principles in your application that we should know and we should follow, so that it will help you to make your app more accessible. Okay, so you can use different applications like accessibility scanner tool to identify and suggest the improvements that you can make in your app design. And You can also use like simple accessibility, Android accessibility suite like talkback and switch access from your device. Okay, so some of the best practice for accessibility is, okay, is this one. Like for example, let me explain. If you have a button, you can have you can have accessibility. You can declare accessibility providing the content description. Okay, for your because it's a simple button. So actually, you can just provide a content description using the what is this button. This is a input button. Okay, you can just do it in this way, but for the moment we are using button. We can use button we can use Android X app button component to use the accessibility, right? Components, sorry, text button, sorry, button and view. Okay, always use the Android X UI components. And I think guys, this is it for the tutorial, guys. So I hope I have given a complete overview of creating creating an application from bottom to top. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can please write a comment below, and if you like it, please just thumbs up, and catch you up in the next lectures, because in the next lectures I will be improving this demo app with advanced Android concepts, implementing advanced UI, okay, implementing like writing applications which you can just load the data from the server, and I will be writing tests. I will be creating writing asynchronous code. Okay, so yeah, just follow me in the upcoming lectures, and thank you.